Part 93. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 931. Xia Xiaoman attended the national meeting. After listening, he looked worried. Although Yilin could roughly guess the reason for Xia Xiaoman's troubles from Xia Xiaoman's reaction, in order to get more clarity, he still asked Nai Hongxiu. Nai Hongxiu was efficient in his work. He eavesdropped and told the young master the contents of the meeting concisely. I see. All in all, it was because of the war. Now within the Dacian dynasty, the four vassal kings raised their troops in four directions and pushed towards Qingdu. At this moment, the Dacian dynasty was like an isolated and helpless little sheep, surrounded by four vassal kings and pushed down by heavy troops, and was in danger. Today's morning session is about the Eastern Front. The king in the east is in the rear, but the front line has reached Lumen Pass, 500 miles away. Lumen Pass is a naturally dangerous city. Lumen Pass is backed by two mountains running north and south of Dongsheng Shenzhou, Dongzhou Mountain and Huaishan Mountain. The two mountain ranges have dangerous terrain, running through the north and south, and are endless. Speaking of which, when they arrived at the coast of the East China Sea from Qingdu 4 years ago, they climbed over the Dongzhou Mountain. It's just that they all flew directly from the top of the mountain and did not experience the danger of this mountain firsthand. Dongzhou Mountain is connected to Huaishan Mountain, with steep cliffs on the east side. In the direction of the East China Sea, looking at the trend of Dongzhou Mountain and Huai Mountain, it is like a high wall, isolating the eastern plain and Qingdu from the inside and outside of the mountain wall. If you follow the normal marching route and want to easily cross the natural dangers of Dongzhou Mountain and Huaishan Mountain, you must pass through Lumen Pass and walk through the canyon at the junction of the two mountains. Once the Lumen Pass is occupied by the rebels, there will be a plain area from East Zhou Mountain and Huai Mountain. The army stationed in the East King will directly enter the hinterland of Dacian without any hindrance. Lumen Pass is now in a very embarrassing situation. One except for a moat, the terrain in front of Lumen Pass has no other terrain that can help with defense. Second, the natural danger behind it means that reinforcements cannot enter Lumen Pass from the hinterland of Dacian in an endless stream, and the traffic restrictions are there. This morning's morning meeting was full of debate. The voices of the courtiers were roughly divided into two groups. One of the factions suggested defending Lumen Pass at all costs, because Lumen Pass is the frontier between the hinterland and the eastern plains. Once Lumen Pass is breached, the morale of the military will be greatly reduced, and it can be said that it will do no harm to the subsequent rebel war. One profit. The other faction is implementing a people-oriented approach. They believe that the Dacian dynasty is currently divided into four fronts and its hinterland is empty. Its military strength is far inferior to that of the four vassal kings. Therefore, in order to preserve their strength, it is better to give up Lumen voluntarily. Pass, camped behind the canyon and retreated to defend Tianguan, blocking the millions of troops stationed in the East King from the natural dangers. To sum up, the two factions' ideas seem to be both rigidly defended, but the methods of defending are somewhat different. One is a hard defender who wants to save face and would rather die than obey, and the other is a coward who shrinks his neck and weighs the pros and cons shall. It seems that the combat concepts of the two factions each have their own advantages. Therefore, in the court today, the two factions of ministers were quarreling. If there is a backbone here and it can be easily concluded and the quarrel ends, that would be fine. The problem is that there is currently no king in the court, and only the Empress Dowager assists the government behind her. In the final analysis, she still cannot be on the stage. The auxiliary government belongs to the auxiliary government. Even though the Empress Dowager has a noble status, she must not openly interfere in the government affairs in the court as a mere daughter. Auxiliary and determination are two different things. After Nai Hongxiu told the young master about the quarrel at the meeting, he went back to Lingzhu to rest. After wandering outside for a long time, she rarely came out and felt satisfied. Junior brother, What do you think? Jian Nanchun watched curiously as a palm-sized elf disappeared next to Yilin. He didn't ask any more questions. There are monsters, demons, and spirits in the world. It doesn't seem strange that junior brother Lin Yi raises some weird things to meet his daily needs. People and their hobbies cannot be generalized. Jian Nanchun didn't care about the rise and fall of the Dacian dynasty. He cared about junior sister Xia Xiaoman. This is how it should be between people from the same sect. Senior brother Jian is right, Yilin sighed softly. The crux of the Dacian dynasty is that there is no strong and wise king who can suppress all the petty people. Yes, Jian Nanchun nodded. It's just that Emperor Xia Yuan died too early and didn't have time to give birth to his rightful son. He agreed with what junior brother Lin said. After all, this is something that is obvious to all. Throughout the 5,000 years of history, all dynasties and 9 dynasties were destroyed at the hands of a mediocre king. This has always been the case. Yilin did not respond to Jian Nanchun's emotion. Jian Nanchun continued to count on his fingers. If Xia Jishan changes his throne, then among the men of Xia blood who are still alive today, only the eldest prince, the second prince, and Chinese king Xia Xingchen will be left. If the fate of the Dacian dynasty is not right, Ju, if he can live for a few more years, the next leader of the Dacian kingdom should be among them. Yilin thought for a while, then turned around and asked, is it possible for one of the 3 princesses to become the emperor? Aha, Jian Nanchun was counting the emperors on his fingers. When he heard this, he stared and sneered, as if he heard a big joke. Since ancient times, except for the daughter of the neighboring continent, Dongsheng Shenzhou has never been here. There is no precedent for a woman to become an emperor. Well, the Kiju Empress does not count. She can be called an emperor because she is invincible in the world and is an emperor of people, not an emperor of a country. In short, this is impossible, even if all the officials in the imperial court can accept it, it is impossible for the people in the world to accept it. Is it a deep-rooted concept? Yilin fell into deep thought and muttered to himself. No one knew what he was thinking at the moment. It's evening. Although Xia Xiaoman has gone off grain, he can eat it or not. But the habit engraved in her soul made her stomach growl and she walked out of the room. Go for a walk. Yilin looked at Xia Xiaoman's red and swollen eyes and asked tentatively. Good. Jian Nanchun originally wanted to follow, but he later gave up this annoying idea. Because when Lin Yi and Xia Xiaoman walked out of the courtyard, they didn't even look at him, or even ask for his opinion, as if they were redundant. Jian Nanchun, who was deeply shocked, stood proudly on the roof again, as if he was alone in the world, facing each other in pairs. Ignore the lonely brother Jian for the moment. Yilin and Xia Xiaoman, brother and sister, put on casual clothes and walked on the streets of Qingdu. In Qingdu, dusk and night merge, the sun sets and the lanterns begin to light up. Brother, do you know that when I was a child, I always sneaked out to play on the street? Every time, my father was scared, afraid that something would happen to me. The two walked side by side. Xia Xiaoman looked at the familiar streets, the people coming and going, the bustling night market, recalling the past. His eyes gradually became blurred, and his voice sounded a little more sighing that was not suitable for his age, but after something happened, my father was no longer afraid. Yilin wondered, why? Once, Xiaoman was bullied by a group of naughty children and robbed Xiaoman of his candied haws. Xia Xiaoman finally smiled. I didn't reveal my identity as the eldest princess, but beat them all up. Xia Xiaoman walked a few steps towards Yilin and put his face close to hers. Yilin was startled, thinking that her junior sister was going to do something to her. Xia Xiaoman pointed to a shallow scar on the left lower jaw. I was injured by them. But later, I generously exempted them from the death penalty. It's a kid, it doesn't matter. Then what? Then, my father seemed very happy that night, but then he became very unhappy. I don't know why. After talking about this childhood episode, Xia Xiaoman raised his head and his smile faded. Senior brother, do you know, Lumen Pass, that's where my second sister got married. Yilin looked at Xia Xiaoman, quietly listening to her junior sister pour out her thoughts on the bustling street. Senior brother, when Xiaoman was in the mountain gate, he once thought that maybe it would be good to abandon the identity of the eldest princess in this life and become a carefree monk. Senior brother, do you know that in the Tianjian gate, this life is the happiest time in Xia Xiaoman's life? Yilin, yeah. But, Xia Xiaoman took a deep breath. Even if Xiaoman becomes a golden elixir monk, even if Xiaoman continues to practice slowly with Xiaoman's current lifespan, he can witness the rise and fall of several dynasties with his own eyes, but after all, the blood flowing in Xiaoman's body is still the blood of the Xia family. My father once said that with greater ability comes greater responsibility. Yilin slowly typed a question mark. Why did he feel that these words sounded familiar? Xia Xiaoman continued, the world is in chaos right now. Although Xiaoman is a daughter, I feel that there is always something that Xiaoman can do to help. If I have to watch the Xia dynasty collapse, maybe this matter will become Xiaoman's inner demon throughout his life, and he will never be able to make any progress in this life. So what? Yilin guessed what Xia Xiaoman wanted to do from Xia Xiaoman's expression and tone. In other words, she already knew what she could do. But Yilin asked anyway. I followed the atmosphere and asked. Xia Xiaoman's childish face showed a determination and perseverance that Yilin had never seen on her face before. I want to protect this great country for my brother. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 932. Yilin and Xia Xiaoman returned from walking on the street. Jian Nanchun felt that the two of them had strange expressions, as if they were hiding something. It seemed like he wasn't hiding anything. Jian Nanchun stood on the eaves, letting the cold wind blow, and remained unmoved. The next day, Xia Xiaoman went to attend the morning court again to discuss state affairs. Yilin replaced Bai Xiaoi as the spy today, and she went to the Yubao's the big bun shop first to observe the two couples from a distance. The two old men were kneading dough to make steamed buns in the kitchen, leaving Xiu'er at the counter to attract customers. Business is booming. Yilin felt that in addition to the delicious buns, the reason why this steamed stuffed bun shop is so good is that there are beautiful women standing at the front desk. He noticed that several wealthy local businessmen were sneaking around and looking at the cardamom white girl Xiu'er with twinkling eyes. Squatting in the distance for a while, Xiu'er carried a basket of steamed buns and sent them to Heian Temple. Yilin followed and also came to Heian Temple. Xiu'er seemed to have become a regular visitor of Ping'an Temple. There was no need for her to introduce herself. The lonely monk guarding the door turned around and called Wang Xiaohu out. When Wang Xiaohu faced Xiu'er, he looked very embarrassed. He scratched his bald head and took the bun, while Xiu'er's cheeks were flying and she lowered her head shyly. In Yilin's opinion, this situation has the flavor of the husband works hard and the wife brings lunch. I'm afraid Wang Xiaohu won't be able to withstand this wave. As the saying goes, men chase women across a mountain, and women chase men across a distance. Yilin felt that it was only a matter of time before Wang Xiaohu returned to secular life for Xiu'er. After Wang Xiaohu acted like a thief with a guilty conscience, he quickly returned to the meditation hall with the caged bag and Xiu'er left. Yilin showed up and walked towards the Ping'an Temple. In the Peace Temple, a haggard old monk, dressed in simple clothes with many patches, was sweeping the floor with his head down. Yilin stepped forward and clasped his hands together. Last time, I was blind and couldn't recognize the eminent monk. Please forgive me, master. The sweeping monk raised his head and looked back calmly. Yilin smiled slightly and announced his family name. Lin Yi, a common disciple of all Tianjian sects, has met Zen Master Tianxin. Haha, Zen Master Tianxin smiled kindly and twirled his grey beard. So you are the legendary Lin Yi. Yilin was stunned. Legendary. Zen Master Tianxin continued, Gaiman Jinbei is an old friend of Lao Na. When Yilin heard this, he understood in his heart that this was easy to say. So Yilin didn't beat around the bush and ask directly, this disciple wants to know the truth about Zen Master Kuyu's death. Zen Master Tianxin, in your opinion, what is the truth? What is consistent with the facts is the truth. Of course, Zen Master Tianxin nodded and said something that Yilin didn't expect, the death of dead leaves is destined to happen like this. It has nothing to do with others. This is the truth. So, Yilin briefly interpreted Zen Master Tianxin's words and came to the conclusion, the death of Zen Master Kuyi is not fate, but a kalpa. Donor Lin is so smart that I am ashamed of myself. Zen Master Tianxin clasped his hands together, and after speaking, he murmured to Amitabha, to be honest, he took the initiative to provoke this calamity of withered leaves, and this is what his fate should be. Take the initiative to provoke. Zen Master Tianxin shook his head. Buddha said, don't tell the truth when you see through it. When it was time for Donor Lin to see through it, the truth that Donor Lin asked for came to him uninvited. Yilin sighed helplessly, to be honest, I have no connection with Buddha, and I don't like the Buddhist riddles. What I'm curious about is, if Zen Master Kuya expected his own death, why didn't he try to avoid it? He once said, after all, reincarnation has ended, there is neither a previous life nor an other side. Since the other side you are pursuing no longer exists and there is no next life, why not cherish the present moment? Zen Master Tianxin smiled slightly and said meaningfully, the other shore is within your heart. Yilin asked a few more questions. Zen Master Tianxin used some strange words to fend them off. He seemed to have said something, and yet he seemed to have said nothing. However, although Zen Master Tianxin could not explain clearly, Yilin vaguely seemed to sense that the death of Zen Master Kuyi was related to a certain person. Wang Xiahua. 4 years ago, the person he took the initiative to provoke was Wang Xiahua. It was Zen Master Kuyi who summoned Wang Xiahua to Ping'an Temple. In his words, Zen Master Tianxin seemed to be saying that this was a disaster caused by Zen Master Kuyi. It was not Wang Xiaohua's fault, nor anyone else's fault. The two did not get along well, but Zen Master Tianxin was Chen Bei's old friend, so Yilin couldn't help but give up. There is a meaning in Zen Master Tianxin's words, you can't say more, otherwise it won't work. If you continue to say it, Zen Master Kuyi's death will be in vain. Translated, it roughly means this. Saying goodbye to Zen Master Tianxin, he continued to sweep the floor in the courtyard. Yilin stepped into the backyard and found that after Wang Xiahua distributed the buns to other monks in the temple, he kept 2 for himself. He hid in the room and giggled while nibbling. Xiahua didn't notice Yilin's arrival until Yilin appeared strangely in his room and patted his shoulder. Yilin did not completely think that Wang Xiahua was from Ping'an Temple. He placed a barrier in the room and after carefully sensing that no one was prying around, he told Wang Xiahua about his conversation with Zen Master Tianxin. Brother Lin, are you saying that there is another mystery to Master Kuyi's death? I just speculate, there is no evidence. I guess Zen Master Tianxin may know something, but he refuses to say. Yilin expressed her thoughts. Zen Master Kuya was Wang Xiaohua's guide on the path to Buddhism. Wang Xiahua repaid his kindness and had deep feelings for Zen Master Kuya. Without saying a word, he patted his strong pectoralis major and tried to find a way to find out the truth about Zen Master Kuya's death. In fact, Yilin felt that the word investigation coming from Wang Xiaohua's mouth was an insult to the act of investigation. But at the moment, Yilin was weak, and Wang Xiahua, as an authentic monk of Ping'an Temple, it didn't seem to be difficult for him to get some words from Zen Master Tianxin. So this matter was left to Wang Xiahua. Walking out of Heianji Temple, Yilin secretly went to the Ministry of War. According to what Xia Ziomen said, the Ministry of War is controlled by the Commander-in-Chief, and there are 6 generals under the Commander-in-Chief. The 6 generals have been away fighting all year round. Especially this year, they have almost never returned to Kingdu. Ever since Yilin heard from Xiaoxiaoman that the legendary commander could drive back the Golden Core Cultivator with one strike, she became curious about this secretive commander. Really? When I sneaked into the barracks, I saw 10 phalanxes of hundreds of people practicing military formations in the martial arts field. And a tall armored man wearing blood-colored armor was standing on a high platform, sitting cross-legged on a bench, resting his chin on his hand, motionless. Is he the commander-in-chief? The 6 generals were not in Kingdu due to their orders, and now in the martial arts arena, the only person qualified to give orders to the 10 military formations is the commander-in-chief. Yilin originally wanted to get closer, but when he sneaked up to the high wall of the military camp and was only a few hundred meters away from the commander, his heart suddenly thumped, and the hairs all over his body stood on end, and he did not dare to go forward any further. No. That's what it is. Hiding in the shadows, Yilin stared at the bloody armored man on the high platform, carefully feeling the pressure coming from him. After a moment, he understood the reason why the other man was able to drive back the golden elixir monk with one strike. Before, Yilin thought that the other party also practiced Suanman skills, but after seeing it with her own eyes, Yilin shook her head vigorously and denied her thoughts. Xiaomei. Yilin secretly called Xiaomei out and switched her vision to the spirit perspective. From Ling's perspective, in the entire martial arts arena, phalanxes of hundreds of people were like burning furnaces, emitting a hot but not dazzling soft light. But the commander standing on the high platform was completely different from the others. There was a ball of blood-colored flames burning around his body, like a scorching sunday. Even from 100 meters away, Yilin could faintly feel the fire coming from him. The astonishing blood evil spirit. He is not following the route of a Suanman Chi practitioner, but is similar to Mo Ren enemy, practicing martial arts to the extreme, using force to forcibly unlock the restriction locks of the human body, and step into the transcendent. The generals here take a completely different route from the Chi refiners. The ultimate in martial arts, the pinnacle of physical strengthening. Most Suanman Chi practitioners disdain the warriors in the world. Chen Bei has mentioned this to Yilin before, saying that this way of destroying oneself is undoubtedly inferior in the eyes of Chi practitioners. Suppose that what a Chi practitioner seeks in practice is immortality, and all kinds of magical powers are just incidental. So what a warrior strives to do to strengthen his body is to squeeze his body's potential, shorten his lifespan, and allow himself to unleash the strongest fighting power in the shortest time. People with the same qualifications, one is to practice Chi and the other is to practice martial arts. Before the golden elixir, with the same amount of time invested, a martial artist can beat the crap out of a Chi practitioner in minutes. To use game terminology as an example, a warrior is equivalent to the early stage, while a Chi master is equivalent to the late stage. Let's use the apostle slang as an example. The warrior is equivalent to the agility side or the strength side of the apostle, while the Qigong master belongs to the spiritual side. After observing for a while, Yilin smiled bitterly. I didn't expect to encounter a stranger like Mo Rendi here. After taking a look and getting the result he wanted, Yilin did not step forward to pry again and left quietly. On the high platform, the commander-in-chief, who was watching the evolution of the military formation intently, suddenly looked at a certain place on the wall of the military camp as if he had something in his heart, and frowned slightly, but found nothing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 933. A few days later. Bao is great if you have it inside the bun shop. Xiu'er went to Ping'an Temple to deliver steamed buns again. The old man smiled and hung up a small wooden sign. Closed today. A group of office workers who were addicted to eating steamed buns left heartbroken. Soon after the crowd dispersed, a young woman wearing a goose yellow plain skirt and a layer of tulle on her face slowly walked towards the end of the street. Although the woman's face was covered and her face could not be seen clearly, when she walked, she swayed her hips and swayed her waist in a charming manner. The fragrant breeze curled up along the way, attracting the attention of all passers-by. For a moment, there was silence on both sides of the street. I saw a white snake-shaped collar wrapped around the woman's snow-white neck. The snakehead's eyes were filled with faint blood, so lifelike that it made people shudder. Under the spotlight, the woman arrived in front of the steamed stuffed bun shop. The old man, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes, and his body moved. After images appeared strangely in the shop, and he was in front of the counter in the blink of an eye. Friends come from far away. The old man looked at the masked woman and said something for no reason. The woman replied in a low voice, "Even if he is far away, he will be killed. Hey, come in." The old man opened the door curtain and let the woman in. The silent streets flow again. Some people speculated that the beauty was the adopted daughter of the bun shop owner. She was such a blessing. Many wealthy businessmen and young people are even more eager to move. They have a very simple idea and want to be relatives with the owner of the bun shop. Inside the shop, the masked woman, who was surrounded by no one else, took off her veil, revealing her delicate face. She suppressed her smile, knelt down on one knee in front of the two old men, lowered her head, and said softly, "The 13th generation guard disciple of MaleProtagonist Temple, Liqian, I have seen the Wind Protector and the Thunder Protector." In the room, the old woman washed the flour off her hands and laughed dumbly, exposed. Liqian didn't dare to get up, she still lowered her head, and said with a hint of helplessness in her voice, "Hefeng Shaha and his party." That day the head of the sword sect became suspicious of his subordinates. The two old men and women in the room were silent for a moment. The old man shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter. This is a piece of chess made by Lord Mora unintentionally. One piece and half a piece. The outcome is unpredictable." The old woman said, "I heard that Master MaleProtagonist still has a son in Tianjian section." The old man, "But no one else knows the true identity of the snail except Lord Mora. About this matter, I have something important to report." Liqian raised his head. He talked about Lin Yi's affairs within the sect, and told the truth about Lin Yi's action against Rushuan in the Black Wind and Sand Sea. The implication was, she is 90% sure that Lin Yi is another Xiaozuo in Tianjian sect. According to legend, the man planted by Master MaleProtagonist is proficient in disguise and shrinking his bones, and can even change his age, appearance, and gender. Even if he is detected by the nascent soul, he can easily hide it. In just 4 years, Lin Yi easily stepped on. Logically speaking, it is impossible to enter the realm of golden elixir. The old woman suddenly frowned and wondered, "You said this person is indeed weird in every way, but if he is really one of ours, how can he be so sharp?" The old man closed his eyes for a long time, then suddenly opened them. The moment he opened his eyes, he forcefully said one word, "Hi." Liqian didn't dare to get up, but looked at Protector Feng in surprise, wondering what he meant by hi. 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 What a move to advance before retreating. Now I believe it even more. Protector Feng twirled his beard, narrowed his cloudy eyes slightly, and said with a smile, "You, me, and she all feel that if there is no way he would be so showy if he really had a secret in his heart, but he did reveal it. Such an act turned out to be a clever move. It just so happened that you took the initiative to escape and exposed your identity." The two of them complemented each other and perfectly concealed his true nature. Identity of Guardian Feng, are you saying that Lin Yi is really a member of my Demon Logo Palace? Liqian was shocked and confused. 9 times out of 10. The two old men thought about it, and the more they thought about it, the more they agreed. For thousands of years, the old immortal of Tianjian sect has been balancing with Lord MaleProtagonist. She will not die for a day, while Tianjian sect is like the sun and the moon in the sky, and its arrogance cannot be extinguished. But now, that person is at the end of his crossbow, and the black wind and sand sea are unexpectedly she is also unable to come in her true form, which shows that at this moment, she can no longer leave the Tianjianmen cave. The three of them talked in a few words in the small bun shop and almost confirmed Lin Yi's identity as a spy. Li Qianqian followed Lin Yi and others all the way to Qingdu in order to report to the two guardians that Lin Yi, Jian Nanshan, and Xia Ziomen, three golden elixir monks, had come to Qingdu. The identity of the spy has been exposed, and if he stays in Tianjian sect, he will waste his life in vain. It is better to take the initiative to escape, continue to use his remaining energy, and contribute to the demon palace. After talking about Lin Yi, Li Qianqian frowned, and then carefully told the story about the strange man growing together with the vines in the black wind and sand sea. Protector Wind and Protector Thunder knew far more secrets than Li Qianqian did. They looked at each other suddenly and saw uncontrollable horror in each other's eyes. Old woman, that was 3,000 years ago. Old man, impossible. If he were among 3,000 years ago, how could he still be alive today? Everyone thinks it's impossible. But although the younger generation doesn't know much about the battle between good and evil 3,000 years ago, the older generation has studied the relevant history and has vivid memories of it if they experienced it themselves. In the MaleProtagonist Palace, this is a warning, saying that even the people in the demon sect cannot be as arrogant as the old demon Zhang, otherwise they will end up with a tragic end that cannot be tolerated by the three paths of good, evil and Buddha. Li Qianqian looked at the solemn expressions of the two uncles and aunts, and secretly thought that there was something fishy here. When she was debating whether to ask more questions, cheerful laughter came from outside the door. It was Xiu who came back from a date. You stay in Qingdu. If there is anything important, I will contact you. Protector Fen waved his hand. He didn't want Xiu to know their true identity and drove Li Qianqian away. Although Li Qianqian was confused, she didn't dare to ask any more questions and left quietly. She stood outside and watched with her own eyes an amateur girl entering the bun shop. The two guardians of Fenlei, whose hands were stained with unknown amounts of blood, and who made ordinary disciples in the MaleProtagonist hall change their expressions, suddenly changed their faces and turned into two kind old people. Parents, Li Qianqian, who was secretly observing outside the shop, was so shocked that his mouth opened into an O shape, round and slippery. In the end, she shook her head helplessly, not knowing what the two guardians meant by pretending to be cool, and finally left the Bao's great bun shop. On the other hand, Yilin sneaks into Tianqian Academy late every night. It took a month. Finally, a total of 375 historical annals and biographies related to history were recorded. Logically speaking, if it was more interesting knowledge, Yilin wouldn't have spent so long. But this history is too boring, and whoever memorizes it will know it. When she was studying in the past, Yilin's academic performance in liberal arts was average. He's not interested. However, in the boring process of memorizing history books, Yilin was equivalent to reading the entire history after the Empress Kiju left. The era where the Kiju Empress lived was called ancient times. In ancient times, high-level Qi practitioners emerged in endlessly. Any one of them could change the Earth's crust with a flip of his hand, causing landslides and tsunamis. At that time, there was no concept of a country, only tribes and villages. On the Dongsheng Divine Continent, there are two most powerful and prosperous tribes, one is named Qi and the other is named Xian. Most of the earliest history was embellished by later generations, and most of it described how awesome and beautiful the Qiju Empress was, even if no one had ever seen the true appearance of the Qiju Empress. According to legend, the Empress Kiju left behind 6 treasures. The records of these 6 treasures in history books are vague and even have the color of mythology. There is a gun across the mountains and rivers. There is a sword that opens up the world. There is a book that knows everything. There is a seal that suppresses everything. There is a shuttle that can teleport thousands of miles. There is a treasure box with endless blessings. Yulin took the seats one by one with the legendary items he knew so far, and she matched up with about a few. Sword, Gailai sword. Gun, killing immortal spear. Seal, seal of the emperor. As for the treasure box, shuttle, and books, Yulin couldn't figure them out. After the Kiju Empress ascended to the upper world, the tribal struggle for hegemony came to an end, and the first dynasty emerged. The first dynasty was called Dian. The Great Yan dynasty had its ups and downs, and then wars resumed. Qi refiners were able to cause chaos, and the dynasty changed again. The second dynasty, coincidentally, was also called Datang. Then, dynasties changed, and a total of 9 dynasties were born on the Dongsheng Shenzhou continent. The current Daqian dynasty is the 10th generation. Endorsement has a side effect. Yulin's mind was filled with a bunch of unpronounceable terms and she felt dizzy. As if drunk, he staggered back to Yingxiu Pavilion. Back in Yingxiu Pavilion, it was already the 5th watch and the moonlight was hazy. Passing by the junior sister's room, Yulin found that the lights were still on, and the junior sister seemed to be alone and unable to sleep. Yulin wanted to just go to sleep, but he hesitated for a moment, then walked back to Xia Xiaomen's door. After silently reciting Ba, he wet his index finger and said Bo on Xia Xiaomen's door paper expressionlessly. A small hole was poked into the ground. Peeking through the small hole, Xia Xiaomen was bending his head at his desk, looking at a yellowed map. The map is filled with many crosses and circles, as well as many lines that alternate between virtual and real. It seems to be a strategic map. Yulin took a quick look and realized that Xia Xiaomen stayed up until 3 or 4 o'clock. It turned out that he was thinking about the harsh situation on all fronts during the civil strife in the Daqian dynasty. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 934. Daqian Dynasty. In the 18th year of Jishan calendar, it is May. Spring is in full bloom. Dongsheng Shenzhou, the war broke out in the Prairie Fire. Bad news continues to come from all fronts including east, west, south and north. The situation is grim and not optimistic. East. Under the wise leadership of the city lord, Lumen Pass, where the second princess was married, defended it for a whole month. However, judging from the constantly updated battle reports from the front, it was only a matter of time before Lumen Pass was breached. South. The Beizan army and the Liaoyuan army met the 200,000-strong army of King Geniz. They retreated steadily and retreated to the Tianshan Mountains and Liaoshu River area, suffering more than half of the casualties. North. The king of Zhenbei was brave and good at fighting. The raiding army and the Tiangong army built a solid defense line. With the defense equipment, they were still capable of fighting. West. Although King Pingzi only had an army of 50,000 men, battle reports came from the front, saying that King Pingzi's army was mixed with capable men and strangers, who poisoned, hid, and killed in secret, and they did everything they could, which was very despicable. The Shadow Army defending the Western Front was a special scout known for its speed. Both sides encountered their opponents and each suffered losses. Someday. Boo. Yulin stood calmly behind Xia Xiaomen and pulled out a white hair from the head of the junior sister who was looking down at the map. Brother, don't make trouble. Xia Xiaomen didn't even raise his head and slapped away his senior brother's evil hand. How many days have you been awake? Yulin vaguely saw the shadow of Molly staying up late in Xia Xiaomen's body. It's all so unremarkable. They all also spend too much time sleeping and eating on certain things. Xia Xiaomen said, we are golden elixir monks, we don't need to sleep. Yulin shook her white hair in front of her junior sister's eyes. Is this why you don't have to sleep? It's just gray hair, no surprise. During this period of time, Xia Xiaoman was studying the situation of the civil war in the Daqian dynasty. She obviously didn't understand strategy, but she even moved out a stack of military books and put them on the table. While studying the military books, she wrote and drew on the strategic map, which felt like sharpening a sword before the battle. A war with cold weapons cannot be fought in a day or two. A battle, two sides confront each other, you test me, I test you, back and forth, repeated consumption. In war, what is fought is consumption, what is fought is manpower, and what is fought for is battery life. No one on either side of the war knows how long they can last, but the side that exhausts its troops, supplies, and morale first will be the loser. Xia Xiaoman ignored his senior brother, frowned, lowered his head and said nothing. Yulin sighed softly, stretched out his knuckles, and tapped the strategy map. Actually, you have already thought of the simplest solution, right? When Xia Xiaoman heard this, he looked up at his senior brother, pursed his lips tightly, and looked slightly pale. Yulin continued, currently, the only people who can legitimately be the emperor are the eldest prince, the second prince, and Xia Xingchen. Kill them all, and your brother will have no way out. Maybe this will also inspire the emperor's heart in his heart. He is now the reason why I'm so cowardly is because there are still these three people in the Xia family's bloodline. Yes, Xia Xiaoman nodded. In Xia Jishan's view, no matter whether it is the eldest prince, the second prince, or Xia Xingchen, Xia Jishan will not panic if any of them replaces him as the emperor, because it will always be the Xia family. But once the other vassal princes win, that means something completely different. Yes, Xia Xiaoman closed his eyes in pain. Senior brother, I understand. But after all, they are all Xiaoman's relatives. If they die, only Jia and I will be left in this world. We depend on each other for our lives. Yulin rubbed her junior sister's hair, boo, and pulled out another dazzling white hair, and said softly, what if one day, between the Xia family's country and relatives, you can only choose one or the other? Country and blood relatives, since ancient times, I have been in a dilemma. What I hate most is to be born in an emperor's family. Xia Xiaoman frequently participated in strategic meetings. Originally, in this kind of military meeting, Xia Xiaoman, even as the eldest princess, had no right to interfere in the war. But when the commander-in-chief had objections, the Empress Dowager issued an order allowing Xia Xiaoman to observe state affairs as the eldest princess. Xia Xiaoman is busy every day and disappears all day long. Instead, Yulin and Jian Nanchun were left to relax and act like outsiders. They meditated in Yingxiu Pavilion all day long and practiced without any mistakes. Jian Nanchun noticed two strange things. Some time ago, junior brother Lin Yi ran to Tianqian Academy almost every night, but these days, he suddenly stopped running. Jiananchun is not used to it. The second thing is, junior brother Lin Yi recently contracted a cold and coughed from time to time. It's strange. Is the physique of the golden elixir monk so weak? Tell me, junior sister, are you too worried about the worldly world? Someday. In the courtyard of Yingxiu Pavilion, the two of them were meditating side by side. Jian Nanchun raised his eyelids and asked. So what? Yulin asked. It's not good for cultivation as a golden core cultivator. Jian Nanchun has clear priorities and only has cultivation in his eyes. Yes, but this is the knot of junior sister's heart. While the two were chatting, they felt something at the same time and looked at the closed courtyard door. There is a person standing outside the door. Yulin and Jian Nanchun looked at each other, and after a moment of eye contact, a timid voice from a palace maid came from outside the door. Mistress Juer, by the order of the Queen Mother, please go to the immortal forest to Chang'an Palace to have a talk. Yulin smiled, turned to Jian Nanchun and said with a smile, Senior brother, I'll be back soon. The implication is, don't worry. Jian Nanchun nodded and remained silent, but made a 6 sign by his ear. He imitated Lin Yi's movements and made a call sign. The subtext of this gesture is, call me if you have anything. After the two communicated silently, Yilin stood up, opened the door and walked out. The palace maid was just an ordinary person, and she seemed a little nervous in front of Yilin. After all, the two people in this courtyard were masters of Suanmen who were not seen in the past. Legend has it that they could poke a hole in the wall with just one finger. Yilin followed the palace maid Zhu'er through the deserted palace paths and arrived at Chang'an Palace. Chang'an Palace was just like the last time he visited at night, without guards and no one in the courtyard. The Queen Mother has decreed that the immortal should come in on your own. The palace maid Zhu'er brought Yilin to the front and back of the door, bowed and backed away, leaving Yilin where she was. She didn't seem worried that Yilin would do anything inhumane to the Queen Mother. The rhythmic trembling came from Yilin's eyebrows again. Inside the hub, above the spiritual sea, the immortal killing spear and the Gailai sword reacted at the same time. Yilin believes that the connection between legendary items is relative. Sure enough, when Yilin came to the door, a beautiful voice came from behind the door. Please come in. Along the way, Yilin speculated on the purpose of the Queen Mother's sudden summons to him. A month ago, after Yilin visited Chang'an Palace at night to no avail, she never took the initiative to come here again. It seemed that he and the Empress Dowager had the same tacit understanding, and neither one took the initiative to approach the other and mention the legendary items. The Empress Kiju left behind 6 treasures. Although it has become a legend in the world, it is not a big secret. What's more, these 6 treasures are becoming more and more mysterious, whether among monks or common people. There are even rumors that anyone who gets one of the 6 treasures left by Empress Kiju can live forever. Invulnerable to swords and guns, invulnerable to water and fire, invincible in the world, and so on. Yilin calmly opened the door and stepped into the hall. The palace is gorgeously decorated, with dragons and phoenixes carved on the walls. In the corner of the house, incense is burning, and the smell is vague and refreshing. Yilin held her breath first, and then secretly took a sip. It seemed that it was not poisonous, and then she felt relieved. Don't worry, immortal. If the AI family has harmful intentions for you, why wait until now? The Empress Dowager's voice came from behind a landscape screen. Behind the translucent screen, there was a graceful figure sitting on a rocking chair, gently stroking her flat belly. Yilin stole past the screen, and in a trance, she seemed to see a peerless beauty, revealing an intriguing expression towards her. Smile. Across the screen, Yilin clearly couldn't see the other person's face clearly, but the moment the Queen Mother spoke, Yilin couldn't help but make up the above scene in her mind. Yes, so why did the Empress Dowager summon Lin Yi to Chang'an Palace this time? Yilin looks calm on the surface, but in the few words of the conversation between the two, there are sparks hidden in the thread. Behind the screen, the Empress Dowager covered her mouth and smiled, and she took the initiative to walk out from behind the screen. Yilin subconsciously wanted to take a step back. But he didn't retreat in the end. Legend has it that the former Kiju Empress left 6 inherited treasures. If you get one of them, you can have a glimpse of the road to immortality. The Empress Dowager smiled. She didn't talk nonsense. She started with Wangjia, taking out a board with cracks on the surface. Shown in front of Yilin. The AI family never expected that the immortal of the Tianjian sect who followed Zhenping back to Qingdu would actually be the proud son of heaven who carries the inheritance of the Kiju Empress. The Empress Dowager took a deep look at Yilin and said with a warm smile, "Enter the immortal comes from the Tianjian sect and has seen a lot, so I wonder if he can recognize this thing." Plop. 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 There was no change on Yilin's face. But inside the chest, the heart beat violently several times. He actually recognized what the Empress Dowager was holding. Although 14 years have passed, the tragic world-destroying battle experienced in the Singularity Age of Gods is still vivid in my mind. 7 heroic spirits. 4 masters. The sky is filled with strange beasts. The heavenly palace fell. The land is barren. The wise king died. All kinds of memories came to mind, making Yilin's eyes flash with a trace of imperceptible sadness and nostalgia. It's the wise king's plank. Yilin was filled with emotion. He never expected that in this world, in this era, at this moment, here, he would see the board that Gilgamesh held in his hands again. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 935. Yilin was indeed surprised. He didn't expect to see the Destiny clay tablet here. In the past, in the Age of Gods, Gilgamesh had the habit of writing diaries. From time to time, he would write and draw on the city wall, holding the clay tablet of destiny. No one knows what he wrote on the clay tablet. Yilin was about to reach out and take it, but the next second, the hand stopped in mid-air. Yilin raised her head and looked into the strange and calm eyes of the Queen Mother. Are you not afraid that I will steal it? If the immortal wants it, just take it. Concubine Shu covered her mouth and smiled. Her elegance was beyond compare. In an instant, all the candle light in the room was eclipsed. Good. Yilin raised the corners of her mouth slightly, put her right hand behind her back, and turned the light on her wrist. Even after the Empress Dowager took the initiative to appear in Yingxiu Pavilion a month ago and asked Jian Nanshan and him to fully investigate and prove that she had no power, Yilin has not relaxed her vigilance towards Concubine Shu until now. Even if Concubine Shu takes the initiative to hand over the legendary item that Yilin has been thinking about, this will still be the case. It went so well. The Empress Dowager's side went very smoothly. It went so smoothly that Yilin felt like she was in a dream. Everything was just right. Everything came to her as she thought. It was hard for Yilin not to be suspicious. But doubts were doubts. The legendary item was right in front of her, and Concubine Shu took the initiative to reveal it. If Yilin didn't dare to reach out until now, it was not caution, but cowardice. Boom, boom. Before reaching out, Yilin knocked on her forehead twice. This is the alarm clock he invented. In this way, it can generate fluctuations in the spiritual sea, and use this fluctuation to wake up the dozing green. After tapping her forehead twice, Yilin made full preparations and finally touched the Tianming clay tablet full of fine cracks with her left hand. Normally, Yilin would not bother Mr. Green in this way. But there was no way. There was something weird about Concubine Shu, and Yilin couldn't tell where to blame it, but she didn't seem to find a reason to do it directly. The moment Yilin came into contact with the clay tablet of destiny. Really? Words floated before my eyes. Weaving book. But Yilin didn't have time to take a closer look at the true properties of the destiny clay tablet. Yilin felt a thud in her head, her eyes lit up, and a sudden change occurred. In the blink of an eye, Yilin came to another place. There are dark clouds overhead. Thunder and lightning swirled in the clouds, making me want to vomit but not vomit. The sky was full of monks, their bodies shrouded in light of different colors, small dots, overwhelming, surrounding Yilin. Hallucination. Yilin looked at the scene in front of her differently and was shocked. Among the monks in the sky, Yilin saw familiar faces. There are black and white sheep, Renqing Shan, Nishan River, flowers but no fish, Jian Nanshan. There were different expressions on their faces. Jian Nanshan's brows were furrowed deeply, as if he was crying or angry about something. Opposite everyone from the Tianjian sect, there are also weirdos with strange expressions, and you can tell at a glance that they are not good people. In addition to the Tianjian sect and the bad guys, there are also a group of monks with shining treasures on their bodies, including Zen Master Tianxin. They all looked at themselves with different eyes. There was deathly silence in the sky and on the earth. At his feet, there was a blazing city, mourners everywhere, and corpses everywhere. I am their focus. Yulin lowered his head and found that his body was covered in blood. In his hand, he was holding a gun. It was the immortal killing spear. Suddenly, he raised his head and saw a figure descending from the sky, and a cold sword penetrated his chest. Before Yulin closed her eyes, the last scene caught his eye. It was Xiaoziumen's heartbroken and crying face. Yulin has not yet recovered from the shock. The scenery in front of me changes again. He came from under the black clouds to the endless glacier. The sky is frozen, the ground is covered with snow, and the sky is desolate. In the distance, there is the lonely sea level and the bloody sunset. By the way, why is it the setting sun and not the rising sun? Do you know what's on the other side of the sea? A familiar and gentle voice came from Yulin's head. Yulin raised her head hard, very hard. Because if she didn't raise her head so high, Yulin wouldn't be able to see the woman's face clearly. After all, Yulin still couldn't see clearly that face. A tall woman with a hazy face and a smile on her face looked at herself. So big. No, so high. No, 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 it's because I'm so short. The woman's white palm held his hand, and the two of them watched the sunset on the sea quietly. One day, the woman looked away and looked at the horizon in the distance, the sound getting farther and farther away. It was so far away that Yulin could no longer hear any of the words behind it. Who is she? No. Who I am. Boom. Yulin's pupils shrank sharply, and the incomplete fragments flashed before his eyes like a revolving lantern. He knew clearly that those were just incomplete pictures, but the pain of Xiaoziumen's frosty snow sword penetrating his chest, the tenderness of the woman holding his hand, everything was so vivid, as if it happened yesterday. Yulin had never experienced such a realistic hallucination. The clay tablet of destiny in her hand, no, or rather, the organization book fell to the ground. The sound of the clay tablet falling to the ground awakened Yulin from her hallucination. When she came back to her senses, Yulin found that concubine Shu was still standing in front of her with a smile, and her movements were still the same as the moment before handing over the clay tablet. There was never any movement. Aha! Yulin's face was frosty, with murderous intent in her eyes. Without saying a word, she pulled out an exploding flying sword and placed it across concubine Shu's neck. The sword was too fast, and concubine Shu's skin was weak. The sword energy accidentally released left a shallow sword mark on concubine Shu's skin. Dark red blood slid down the tip of the sword, and the time in the palace seemed to freeze at the moment when Lin Yihan's sword was around concubine Shu's neck. Yulin's cold eyes were as steely as iron. He looked at Shu Fei's calm eyes, quickly calmed himself down, and asked, "What did you do?" The immortal has doubts in his heart. Concubine Shu remained motionless, as if the person with the sword across her neck was not her, but someone else. Explain. Concubine Shu sighed, the immortal has misunderstood. If you explain it clearly, it's not a misunderstanding. If you can't explain it, it's a big misunderstanding. Yulin didn't let go of the sword. If she didn't agree, the sword would be dragged down without hesitation. This is a treasure that the AI family accidentally obtained. This is, the Book of Heaven. Legend has it that those who obtain the Book of Heaven can understand a person's life, the past and the future. Although the AI family does not know what the immortal saw when he came into contact with the Book of Heaven, you can clearly state that it is the past or the future of the immortal. It seems that concubine Shu does not know the true properties of the Destiny Clay Tablet. She called the clay tablet the Book of Heaven. Yulin's sword moved a few inches away. He lowered his head and glanced at the seemingly ordinary clay tablet that had fallen to the ground. With a thought, the tablet floated up and fell into Yulin's hand. This time, no strange fragments flashed before her eyes, and Yulin finally saw clearly the properties of the Destiny Clay Tablet. Weaving Book. Level Legend, 2/7. Durability 32/100. Effect: weave numerology and predict the future. Explanation: yes, this is one of the keys. Organization book. The attributes of this legendary treasure are too simple, just like a temporary worker putting it on the shelf with only a few words. What makes Yilin feel strange is that the legendary items he has come into contact with have a durability column that is either ridiculously long or endless. But the durability of this weaving book is pitifully low, with the upper limit of durability only being a mere 100 points. Why is it so low? Compiling numerology. Predict future? Reason. Yilin suddenly remembered that this term seemed to have been heard from Mr. Green. At that time, Yilin only thought that it was the reason of reasoning and did not understand the deeper meaning. But now when he saw this legendary item, Yilin Fang suddenly realized that the reason mentioned by Green meant something else. When Yilin was surprised, Concubine Shu smiled slightly. With a mortal body, if you pry into the destiny of heaven, you will be punished by heaven. Although the AI family obtained this treasure, it did not make the AI family smooth sailing in this life, but instead encountered various misfortunes. In the past, Emperor Xia Yuan used the AI family's the treasure predicted that he would become the leader of Daqian Kingdom, but in the end, he still could not escape this divine punishment and died of a vicious disease together with the former queen. Yilin looked at Concubine Shu in surprise again. You mean, Emperor Xia Yuan and the former queen died because they were spying on the destiny of heaven? Yes. Concubine Shu's eyes showed a trace of sadness that was difficult for others to notice. The AI family is also about to die soon. Why do you do this? Oh, Concubine Shu smiled lightly. The late emperor was kind to the AI family to save their lives. The Empress Dowager gave an inexplicable reason. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 936. When leaving Chang'an Palace, Yilin's entire face was tense. His mind was filled with memories of the broken fragments that flashed by. Yilin did not doubt the authenticity of those clips. Everyone in the world can doubt it, but he can't doubt it? That's a legend, a real legend. But the organization book is different from ordinary legendary items. Later, Yilin played with it carefully in the room, but was unable to activate the legendary item to see into the past and future. Later, the Empress Dowager said that people who come into contact with the Book of Heaven for the first time will most likely see some fragments. These fragments are obtained by those who are destined and are rewards from heaven and cannot be forced. The Empress Dowager holds the Book of Heaven in her hand, and occasionally sees some past and future events related to herself or the people around her. At this point, Yilin finally understood why Gilgamesh would show his clay tablets from time to time and write and draw on them. It turns out that this seeing into the future function is random and uncontrollable. Everything seemed to click. Emperor Xia Yuan can become emperor. The death of Emperor Xia Yuan and his wife. The decay of the concubine Shu's body. Everything makes sense. Even if Yilin wanted to doubt it again, she couldn't find any doubts. Is everything she said true? So, what about those clips? Yilin kept rubbing her chest on the road. There, the feeling of the frost and snow sword penetrating the body still seemed to remain. Why would Junior sister kill herself? Why was he attacked by Tao, demon, and Buddha? Is this the loss of human nature or the distortion of morality? In the second picture, who is the woman holding his hand? Intuition told Yilin that that woman seemed to have an inseparable relationship with concubine Shu. The smiles of the two are so similar. Although Yilin could not clearly see the face of the woman in the second picture, Yilin always felt that she was not the same person. This time I met with concubine Shu. It seemed to answer a lot of questions in Yilin's mind. But what followed was more doubts. It's like a chicken lays an egg, the egg lays a chicken, the chicken lays an egg, and there are endless descendants. It's getting more and more chaotic. Yulin dug hard at the dead skin on her forehead, feeling confused. He became increasingly confused as to whether Concubine Shu was an enemy or a friend. If it is said that Concubine Shu gained the attention of Emperor Xia Yuan because of the heavenly book, then many thoughts can be connected together. No. Suddenly, Yulin walked on the path, paused, slapped his forehead, and suddenly realized, Emperor Xia Yuan must have seen some kind of picture, he must have discovered something, and he passed the throne to him before he died. Xia Jishan, who is the weakest, he wants to use this method to direct Daqian's ending to the future in his heart. Not only Emperor Xia Yuan. Perhaps the prime ministers, commanders, and even the generals of the 6 armies, among all the powerful officials who support Concubine Shu in the Daqian palace, they have most likely come into contact with the Zhili book. Through the Zhili book, they saw something, a fragment of the future. Even Xia Jishan has seen the future. Everyone is working hard for a certain future. No wonder it's so. Yulin suddenly figured it out. Everything is explained. The only thing that couldn't be explained now was the picture he saw. According to what Concubine Shu said, her repeated spying on the destiny depleted her health, so her body was as dry as wood. This thing is actually more powerful than the immortal killing spear? Could it be because I learned from Concubine Shu? Was it because the order book was snatched away from his hand that this future happened? Yulin did not rashly take away the weaving book from Concubine Shu. If Concubine Shu covered it and hid it, Yulin might steal it or rob it. But Concubine Shu wanted to hand the organization book into her hands like a hot potato, but Yulin hesitated. After much deliberation, he finally decided to temporarily keep the orientation book in Concubine Shu's hands. The main mission of 7 keys won't be completed for a while, so one less or one more is fine. He did not forget the prediction he made for himself before going out. There is always nothing wrong with being cautious. While lowering her head to think, Yulin almost broke the antique door of Yingxiu Pavilion. Back in Yingxiu Pavilion, Xia Xiaoman was not there, and Jian Nanshan was acting coquettishly. Jian Nanshan asked Yulin about her experience of meeting the Queen Mother. Of course, Jian Nanshan was more curious about what happened during such a long hour than the content of the conversation between the two. An hour? Whatever should happen or shouldn't happen, there's enough time for it to happen. Ignoring brother Jian who was poking her waist, Yulin returned to her room. Close your eyes, breathe out, and the day has passed. That night, Yulin originally wanted to talk to Xia Xiaoman about how to save Dagan from danger. But he didn't expect that one of the many nails he sent out would react. Yulin found the one that responded. It turned out to be the one that Yulin personally handed to the tiger demon Bai Chuchu on Qingyu Mountain 4 years ago. That double pin nail is the first version 1.0 test, which only has a warning function and no call function. Something happened at home. Yulin didn't wait for Xia Xiaoman to come back. He was swept by the strong wind and stepped out of the room. Suddenly, the wind howled and clouds surged in the Yingxiu Pavilion. Jian Nanshan thought there was an enemy attack, so he pulled out the Tianji sword and rushed out of the room. Senior brother, I have an urgent matter and I am traveling far away. Please contact me if you have any questions. Yulin didn't have time to explain too much, so he just took the fastest way and went south from Qingdu. Jian Nanshan watched helplessly as junior brother Lin moved his left hand and right hand in a circle, tearing out a strange cave filled with sparks in the sky, entered it alone, and disappeared. After a moment of sluggishness, senior brother Jian was surprised and envious of junior brother Lin Yi's unique spell, and secretly wondered if he could learn it. Speaking of which, the spatial structure of this world is relatively stable, and it is more difficult to open a wormhole. Traveling through portals is not much faster than a skateboard. But when she was in a hurry, Yulin couldn't care about that much, so she could just hurry up. Walk and stop, stop and rest. On the evening of the third day after the mother and son nail split, Yilin returned to Jinping province in the south. On the way, Yilin even saw Dakian and the army of King Genies having a tentative battle, with smoke everywhere. The king of Genies had been planning for a long time. He carried the siege equipment all the way north from the direction of Jingnan city, and pulled out a long supply line. Yilin was just passing by and didn't cause any trouble, but he secretly took note of this supply route, maybe it would be useful in the future. Dakian dynasty. It was the 13th day of the 5th month in the 18th year of the Jishan calendar. Yilin returns to Qingnu village. There was drizzle in the sky. Outside Qingnu village, due to the drizzle, water bloomed on the river, but the scene remained the same. Stepping into Qingnu village, it was a mess and empty. There were no bodies either. Yilin opened her mouth slightly, feeling anxious in her heart. She did not hesitate to let go of her senses and search for traces of living people in the village. Unexpectedly, no one was found alive, but a small white cat was found on the roof of the former Lin family. The white cat was soaked in the rain, sitting alone on the roof, licking its wet fur. When Yilin appeared in front of the white cat, a hint of surprise flashed in the green eyes of the white cat. Meow. Where are my parents? Meow. Go back to Shangxian. Bai Chuchu didn't know if she was used to pretending to be a cat. She spoke in a meow-like voice, but she wasted no time and told everything that happened in Qingnu village. 10 minutes later, a bonfire was lit in the abandoned forest house. The white cat closed its eyes and fell asleep, leaning against the bonfire to warm itself and remove moisture. Yilin finally breathed a sigh of relief after listening to Bai Chuchu's narration. A false alarm. It turned out that 3 days ago, an old man with a white beard, who called himself Lin Yuwang's acquaintance, picked up the 2 old parents of the Lin family. From Bai Chuchu's description, Yilin speculated that the white-bearded old man should be Chen Bei. Bai Chuchu said that in front of that expert, she felt that her transformation was invisible, and she almost thought she was going to die. Later, the Genies king's army raided everywhere, and the bandits became more and more rampant. The remaining villagers in Qingnu village knew that they could no longer stay here, so they packed up their belongings and moved north. During the migration, the villagers dispersed and went their separate ways. Chen Bei only took away Lin Yi's parents and not the others. In Chen Bei's view, the war has come and he cannot save everyone. The reason why he specifically went down the mountain to take away Yilin's parents was because of their relationship. As for the other people in the village, Chen Bei couldn't take them all away. Yilin sighed softly to express her understanding. There is no never-ending feast. Master, do you want to go back to the mountain? Bai Chuchu asked. Yilin shook his head. No need, I feel relieved to have Lao Chen help take care of them. If I guessed correctly, Chen Bei should have brought them back to Tianjian section now. There is no safer place in the world than Tianjian section. Moreover, the people brought back by Chen Bei are regarded as bringing in talents and are not considered violations. Bai Chuchu fell silent. Secretly, human beings are inseparable from relationships and privileges. Qingnu Mountain is no longer safe. In the past, there were rumors of demon in Qingnu Mountain, which scared away many refugees. But ever since Bai Chuchu moved to Qingnu village to pretend to be a cat, the mountain has been occupied by bandits and bandits, because there are many houses left by the predecessors on the mountain, which have been repaired and used as camps. From today on, you will practice with me. Yilin touched the soft hair on Bai Mao'er's body and decided to take Bai Chuchu with her. It would be good to have an extra helper. Okay, master. No, call me master from now on. Yeah, meow, master, meow. When Bai Chuchu thought about the various delicacies made by Master Lin Yi, crystal clear saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth and pulled out threads between the cat's lips and teeth. She was greedy. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 937. Yilin did not return to Qingdu immediately. Now that her parents have been settled by Qianbei, Yilin is alone and has nothing to worry about. Mao Bai Chu shrunk her figure, curled up on Yilin's shoulder, and lay down firmly. Qingnu village has been deserted. The spirit gathering array he set up in the village has been destroyed. Walk away, empty, only the years will linger. Yilin stood in front of the village entrance, looking at the place where he grew up, feeling quite sad. As long as you live, you must have somewhere to go. Once, he thought this was his home in this world, but now, this home has disappeared. Now, the only place that can truly be called home is my villa in Tianjianmen. Yilin laughed to herself, stepped on the skateboard, and jumped into the air. On the skateboard, Yilin took out the pins one by one from the storage space. These pins are like business cards. Whoever you give them to will be added as a friend. Yilin took out Chao Rushuan's nails and used the tracking technique. Then, he discovered something. His mother-in-law was thrown away by Chao Rushuan again. Oh, women, they are indeed unreliable. Yilin squinted her eyes and looked to the west, turning into a stream of light and disappearing into the sky. A week later, Yilin rode her skateboard through the war-torn cities and returned to the Black Wind Sand Sea. At the edge of the Sand Sea, Yilin stopped, took out the turtle shell that was almost covered with a layer of pulp, and used a half-baked divination technique. To be honest, there are so many skills in Tianjian sect, whether it is alchemy, sword making, formation skills, or animal training skills, he dared to say that he is not much worse than any inner disciple. But it was only the Tai Gua technique in Tai Mountain that he had not yet learned the essence of, and he always felt that something was missing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The most important thing is that good hexagrams are not effective, but bad hexagrams are particularly effective. I don't know if there's something wrong with the hexagram technique, or if there's something wrong with him. 3 copper coins rattled inside the turtle shell, and Yilin skillfully shook the coins to the ground. He looked at the hexagrams and deduced the deep meanings of the hexagrams. The fate is uncertain. After a while, Yilin opened her eyes. According to his experience, it might be considered an ominous sign for others, but for him, it seemed to mean nothing would happen. After the divination, Yilin felt relieved and entered the Black Wind and Sand Sea to search. As soon as he entered the Sand Sea, Yilin encountered his first black sandstorm, which gave him a head-on blow. This is the place where old Demon Zhang fought with thousands of monks 3,000 years ago. The snowy mountains turned into deserts, and the ice and snow melted, turning into a sea of hot sand. This shows how terrifying the power of the ancient Qi refiners 3,000 years ago was. No one is more experienced in dealing with the Black Wind and Sand Sea than Yilin. He skillfully dug out a sand pit, buried himself and Bai Chu in it, and waited for the black sandstorm to pass. The spiritual energy in the Black Wind Desert is chaotic, and other monks would not dare to enter at all, for fear of never returning. But Yilin has no such worries. Before entering the Black Wind Sand Sea, Yilin has already left the corresponding coordinates outside. As long as he is still in this world and is not trapped in a strange cave, he can rely on the induction between coordinates creates a wormhole and travels through space. He didn't learn the essence of the other supreme style spells, but he was particularly proficient in the teleportation technique. Yilin and his party stayed in the Black Wind Sand Sea for 10 days. Finally, relying on feeling and divination, Yilin found the place where the strange cave was. A bottomless ravine appeared out of thin air out of the perfectly good sand dunes. Continuous quicksand was flowing continuously into the ravine that spread to the horizon. Sand sea waterfalls were formed on both sides, which was particularly spectacular. Looking down from a high place, the sand sea seems to be divided into 2 halves, the left half and the right half. It's the master's sword. The traces left behind are so terrifying. Yilin took advantage of the black sandstorm before it came and carefully observed the remaining sword intent of the sword. As she watched, Yilin was suddenly startled. Wait a minute, according to historical records, there is only one sword among the 6 legendary props left by Xiao 11, and if that sword is the Sword of Oblivion, then what is the legendary prop in the hands of the Supreme Leader? Yilin looked at the ravines in the desert and thought deeply, wait a minute, could it be the light shuttle that brought us back to the heavenly sword gate from the sea of sand in the blink of an eye? Yilin secretly nodded, it must be. History books record, there is a shuttle that can teleport thousands of miles. It is clear that the shuttle is the legendary prop of the leader. Why didn't I find it at the time? While thinking about it, Yilin felt a little regretful that she just missed the legendary item. At the same time, from another angle, Yilin also saw the horror of the supreme leader of Tianjian sect. Being able to create such traces on the black windy sand sea without relying on legendary props shows that the leader is truly the ceiling for chi refiners in this world. So hard. Yilin resisted the urge to take out the big treasure spear Zuxian, shoot it at Chaha, and compare with the leader supreme from afar. After searching around for a long time, Yilin found no special traces. The black wind sand sea is raging with wind and sand all year round. Even if there is anything left behind, it has long been buried by the wind and sand. Chao Rushuan must have been here. Has she found that person? Yilin didn't understand why Chao Rushuan deceived him again. Or should we say, what happened to Chao Rushuan? Yilin stood proudly on the skateboard, like a peerless skateboard swordsman, alone in the wind and sand. At this time, there was another strong wind all around, and the black sand was eye-catching. A strong wind swept up the dark sand and rolled it into Yilin's mouth and nose. Cough, 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 cough. Under the strong stimulation, Yilin couldn't hold her breath and let out a violent dry cough. Coughing and coughing. Yilin felt a dull pain in her chest, and a sweetness filled her heart. Her already fair face suddenly looked even paler. He covered his mouth, his throat felt hot, and when he opened his hands again, there was a dazzling pool of blood on his palms. Yilin looked at the blood on his hands in shock. It was the first time in his life that he saw red for no reason, which made him a little overwhelmed. Dacian Dynasty, West. There is a city. The west side of the city leans against the black wind sand sea, so wind and sand blow here all year round. It is yellow sand blown from the edge of the black wind sand sea. Years of wind and sand attacks have left the city's walls covered with many holes of varying sizes, like insect erosion. From time to time, sand flows out of the holes in these walls. Lulan. This city is called Lulan. In Lulan city, soldiers patrolled back and forth, and caravans from the Far East avoided the war-torn areas and came here to do business. They brought rich oriental specialties, such as silk, cloth, gouache, embroidery, handicrafts, etc. Although Lulan city is not rich, it has jade, a rare specialty in the eastern region. The world calls it jade, but the good quality jade contains spiritual energy and is also called spiritual stone by Suanman monks. The trade route between the east and the west has long been opened, and most of the merchants hold passes. The checkpoints along the way will not set up defenses against merchants who have passes. Dacian Dynasty. August. Hot summer day. A blazing sunny day. A thin figure carrying a thin suitcase, covered in travel, arrived here. I saw him coming to the shelter, shaking his robe, and piles of sand fell down. The man lifted off the sandproof mask on his face, revealing a pale face with a messy beard and an unkempt appearance. Cough, cough, cough. The young man coughed violently and covered his mouth and nose with the towel again. Master, why haven't you recovered from your cough? The white cat on the young man's shoulder squeezed its head out of the gap in the sandproof robe, leaving only a small head exposed. The cat leaned close to the young man's ear and asked in a voice that could only be heard by one person and one cat. If someone accidentally heard the cat's words, they might be scared to death and shout, "There is a monster." It's probably very difficult. The young man looked helpless, covered his mouth and nose, walked towards the city gate, came to the Lilin city guards, and showed his pass. "Who are you? Where do you come from? Do you have a warrant?" The city guards were very dedicated. When waiting in line for the young man, they bowed their heads and skillfully asked the 3 questions of the soul. "My surname is Zhang Mingsen. I'm from Qingdu. My pass is here." The young man who called himself Zhang San showed his pass. The guard looked at the portrait on the pass suspiciously. After comparing it up and down, he found nothing special and let the businessman go. "Master, why did you use such troublesome methods to sneak in?" After passing the city gate, Mao asked again strangely. "When I saw Zhang San walking out of the remote alley next to the city gate again, he wiped his face with his right hand, and suddenly he changed into a completely different look. You don't understand, this is called experiencing life." The young man smiled slightly. "In fact, his name is not Zhang San. My name is Lin Yi. A reader's birthday, early update. Happy birthday. Love you guys. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 938. Yuren is sick. He coughed up blood. To explain it with modern medicine, it is nothing more than pneumonia, bronchiectasis, tuberculosis, and the like. More seriously, there may be pulmonary hypertension, pulmonary embolism, and lung cancer. But it doesn't seem like it. Can Qi masters also get sick? No, to be precise, will the dignified apostle get sick? Ever since he entered the extraordinary realm, disease has become a very distant term. Yilin dug up modern memories from more than 10 years ago to diagnose herself. But modern medicine is based on clinical medicine, imaging, and laboratory science, and Yilin is not a professional, so she has no way to start. He took some time to seek out so-called famous doctors. Yilin even used her senses to explore inside her body, but couldn't find anything wrong. Poisoned. Yilin had doubted this. The so-called famous doctors in the Dacian dynasty all shook their heads secretly after examining Yilin one by one, and suggested that Yilin hire another doctor. In the end, what Yilin didn't expect was that after searching around, he found the territory of King Geniz, which was Jingnan City. In the southeast corner of Jingna City, there is a doctor named Du Wan. Despite his effeminate name, this famous doctor named Du Wan looks like a middle-aged man. Yilin could tell at a glance that the other party was a monk, and the other party also saw that Yilin had cultivation skills. The two faced each other, smiling and saying nothing. "I didn't expect that the owner of the Tang Tang Bodhisattva building, Clay Bodhisattva, would pretend to be a miracle doctor and stay here. As a golden elixir monk, I doubt your level." Yilin looked at the smiling middle-aged man and sighed lightly, but did not draw his sword. "I also didn't expect that a golden elixir monk would actually suffer from an incurable disease." He didn't ask Yilin how he knew he was a clay bodhisattva. "Because there is a dried black lotus on the table of the clay bodhisattva." The stamen of the black lotus was stained with a lump of yellow mud, which looked like shit. Other people's black lotus seals have no shit, but this black lotus has shit. "How dare you say that you are not a clay bodhisattva?" Yilin looked at the dried black lotus, her eyes twitching, and she disagreed with the taste of the clay Buddha. "They are all insiders, and only a fool can't see it. Are you really good at healing?" Yilin looked into Ni Bodhisattva's eyes and asked seriously. If he said no, Yiren would draw his sword without saying a word. "Replacement guaranteed." Clay Bodhisattva also answered seriously. So, Yilin sat down opposite the Ni Bodhisattva, stretched out her fair and thin arms, and asked casually, "There are countless people killed in the Bodhisattva Tower, but you are here to save people, why?" Ni Bodhisattva put his hand on Yilin's pulse gate. He was secretly frightened by the other person's unhurried demeanor, but his face was extremely calm. "We are both monks, but you don't know." Yilin thought for a moment and expressed his thoughts, Heavenly disaster. The clay bodhisattva sighed, yes, you have committed too many sins, and you will reap the consequences. With that said, Ni Bozala opened his clothes. His move was not with any evil intentions, but to show off his chest. On the chest of the clay bodhisattva, there is a large black spot covered with ferocious black energy. The Ni Bodhisattva showed off his clothes for a moment, then quickly put on his clothes again, looking like he was fine. Nothing surprising, Yilin nodded. Yes, nothing surprising. Oh. Ni Bodhisattva quickly removed his hand from Yilin's veins, fearing that the young man with evil eyes would misunderstand, and said with a smile, it's all strange, I'm talking about you. Appreciate further details. Haha, Ni Bodhisattva stood up and walked to the wooden basin aside to rub his hands vigorously. If I guessed correctly, your birth must have been very rough. Yilin was stunned. Indeed. Not to mention how long it took to draw the talent ball between reincarnations. After he was born, he heard from his parents that it was very difficult for Huilin to get pregnant. In the end, he went to the Golden Temple to seek blessings, and finally he grew up and had a son. Lin Yi. If we say it is difficult, it is indeed quite bumpy. Thinking of this, Yilin nodded and didn't hide anything. As expected, Ni Bodhisattva nodded and looked at Yilin with a little more wonder in his eyes. Your crux can be explained in one sentence. Please tell me, I can add more money. No need. The clay bodhisattva, who was rubbing his hands, paused, squatted on the ground and turned his back to Yilin, and said, depression is born and there is no cure. Can you say something humane that is easy to understand? To be honest, I can tear down this city. In short, your birth went against the will of heaven. To put it bluntly, your parents were destined to have no children and no children in this life, but you were born and became a golden elixir monk. All of this, if it hadn't been confirmed by someone 5,000 years ago that reincarnation has ended, I can't help but suspect that you may be the reincarnation of some ancient great power, reincarnated under the guise of a shell. The way of heaven has its own will. Although you have survived the catastrophe, you can't avoid it for a while, but you can't avoid it for a lifetime. You are destined to die young, jealous of the genius, and will not live more than 20, 3 at most. 10. Are you seeing a doctor or telling fortunes? The clay bodhisattva is not talented, he only knows a little bit. Ni Bodhisattva finally finished washing his hands, dried them with a clean towel, and shrugged helplessly, I can't cure your disease, and even if it can be cured, I won't cure it. I don't want to be tainted with unnecessary cause and effect, and I'm thinking about it. The clay bodhisattva pointed to the top of his head without hesitation, indicating something. Yilin understood instantly. Everyone is the same. It's just that Yilin has big greens backing up, so she's not too worried about the calamity. Yilin asked, since you don't want to get involved in the cause and effect, why do you want to help Xiaxing Chen win the throne? Of course, if you don't want to say it, then don't say it. You're just curious. When a person attains enlightenment, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. What's more, he ascends to the throne of the human emperor. The way of the clay bodhisattva. Tisk, it's these mysterious things again, Yilin sneered. Your Excellency seems not to believe in fate. Ni Bodhisattva frowned and looked at Lin Yi. Yilin shook his head, I keep saying I don't believe it, but I live my life as I was destined to. If your parents hadn't given birth to you, you wouldn't have had to suffer this. The clay bodhisattva looked quite sad. Don't blame them. Although Yilin didn't like what Ni Bodhisattva said, there was no malice in the other person's words, so Yilin let it go and turned around, preparing to leave. Since there is no cure for this disease, I'll excuse you. Yilin's reaction was far calmer than Ni Bodhisattva expected. He didn't understand why. He pretended to be a miracle doctor, but he was actually a miracle doctor. Here, he saw many people who were crying and wailing after he judged them to be incurable diseases. He has also seen a powerful chi refiner who made all kinds of arrangements in order to live longer, just to fight for a bright future. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was so calm that he accepted his tragic fate of doomed not to live until 20 in an instant. Why? The clay bodhisattva became very curious about the young man who was about to turn around and leave. Perhaps because of his professional habit, he likes to observe everyone's facial expressions and body language at the moment before they die, or before they know they are going to die, so as to understand their complicated and desperate inner activities. Ni Bodhisattva looked at the other person's leaving figure. But Yilin suddenly stopped in front of the door, turned around with a half smile, and looked at Ni Bodhisattva. Are you sure you don't want to take action? If you don't, I will leave. The Ni Bodhisattva was suddenly startled, and there was a hint of hidden fear in the eyes of the young man. But after a moment of silence, the clay Bodhisattva shook his head. No need, it's unnecessary. I won't pay the consultation fee. Your service attitude is not good, so it's a bad review. Lin Yi said and left here. After Lin Yi left, the clay Bodhisattva took out the hand hidden behind his back. In fact, when he was washing his hands, he hid a black dagger in his sleeve. He did not take out the dagger until the Jindan monk who came to see the doctor left the place and disappeared from the sight of the clay Bodhisattva. The two of them didn't talk much about each other from beginning to end. Ni Bodhisattva did not ask who Yilin was, nor where Yilin was from. After Yilin saw the identity of Ni Bodhisattva, she did not mention the relationship between Xiaxing Chen and Bodhisattva Tower, nor did she ask if they would meet in war if they met again in the future. This is called tacit understanding. Yilin is here today as a patient. The clay Bodhisattva sitting here today is the miracle Dr. Duwan. But after leaving this door, when we meet again in the future, Yilin is Lin Yi, and the miracle Dr. Duwan is the clay Bodhisattva. The Ni Bodhisattva wants to ascend to heaven by borrowing the human emperor's destiny chicken dog, and Yilin also has his own purpose. Destinies are intertwined, and things are unpredictable. Sure enough, God is jealous of the prodigy. Yilin didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and raised her middle finger to the sky arrogantly. Master, meow, why did it take so long? Bai Chuchu had been waiting outside the door under Lin Yi's instructions. She didn't know the conversation inside. I just happened to meet an interesting guy. Yilin rubbed Bai Chuchu's hair and explained with a smile. Meow. Bai Chuchu lay comfortably on Yilin's lap. She really thought of herself as a cat. Although cats and tigers are related, she didn't remember that she was once a big demon tiger who lived in Qingnu Mountain. One person and one cat, stepping out of Jingnanken is like entering a deserted place. On the road. One person and one cat, the cat talks to the other person, and they can chat freely. By the way, my father and mother, did they miss me when I was away? Back to master, meow, they always mention your name. It must. By the way, there is also Mrs. Xioman. Wait a minute, when did junior sister become young madam? The young master's parents said it. Tisk, why do you worry about these things? Meow master, where should we go next? Let's go to a brothel. Meow. Although Bai Chuchu is a demon, she has also spent her time wandering in the mortal world, so she obviously understands what a brothel is. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to find someone. Yilin coughed twice. Coughed up blood again. Yilin silently swallowed the blood back into his stomach. One person and one tiger, meow, drifting away. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Xueshi. Chapter 939. Lilan City. Thousands of miles of yellow sand. This is the main city of King Pingxi. Most of the buildings in the city are small bungalows built with some earth and stone, which are resistant to wind and sand erosion and have unique styles. Yilin walked on the streets and felt the local customs. To give a few chestnuts. In restaurants here, you have to close the doors and windows tightly to eat, otherwise there will be a layer of dust on the dishes that are still in good order while eating. The waiters here are very diligent and come to clean the tables every once in a while. For the steamed buns here, you have to tear off a layer of the buns before you can eat them, otherwise you will feel your teeth grinding. The girls here wear very little clothing, often exposing their navels and small waists. Firstly, they are afraid of the heat, and secondly, wearing too much clothing can easily hide dirt. Yilin came to an inn. The name of the store is called One Inn. The innkeeper is a charming young woman with a pretty face and a touch of makeup. She wears a brightly colored midriff-bearing skirt, with circles of red rope-woven chains on her wrists and ankles. At the end of the chain are small golden bells. When the landlady walked around, the bells made a crisp sound, accompanying the rhythm of her walking, like a moving song. Inside the inn, there was no one. Today we are expecting visitors from afar. It seems that this is a gate that no one asks about, but it will be opened for you in the end. The tables and chairs in the lobby were covered with dust, and it was obvious that no one had been there for a long time. When Yilin came to the encounter in the dust, the landlady raised her eyelids slightly, her brown pupils brightened slightly, and her high nose showed a different kind of exotic style. She covered her mouth and smiled sweetly. "Hey! What did the slave say today? My eyebrows are always twitching. It turns out that the god of wealth is coming to my door. Lord, may I ask if you are staying in a hotel? Or a hotel? Or a hotel?" Yilin responded with a kind smile, "If you can't live here, it depends on whether the boss lady knows how to behave." Disgusting, the young woman was not the kind of coquettish lady. She quickly scanned Yilin's body several times, assessing the strength of the person who came. When she saw that the person did not look like a prodigal, she bullied him instead. He walked out from behind the counter and leaned against Yilin's side. The fragrant breeze came slowly, and his plump lips pressed against Yilin's mouth. He breathed in a warm breath and whispered, "I don't know what this gentleman wants to do. What should the slave do? Where are the people?" Yilin smiled and said nothing. The young woman saw the little white cat lying on Yilin's shoulder. She glanced at the king pattern on the white cat's forehead and wondered why this little kitten looked a bit like a tiger. Was it crooked? While thinking about it, the young woman praised, "What a pretty cat." Bai Chuchu silently took out her claws, a little angry. The owner can treat her as a cat, but others can't. Yilin didn't show off. "I came here just to find someone." "I hate it, sir. I thought you were different from the others. I didn't expect that. As soon as I saw the slave, I said I was looking for someone." The young woman squinted her eyes and smiled. "Shouldn't the guest say the next thing? You came all the way to Lilin just to find the slave family, right?" "Yes." Yilin gently placed a wooden sign that had been gathering dust in the storage space for many years on the table and looked directly into the bright big eyes of the young woman's sister. "I'm looking for Feng Qingtong." On the other hand, Qingdu. Reports of the successive defeats ahead reached Qingdu. Even though these messages are blocked. But the most difficult thing in the world to hide is people's mouths. There are occasionally refugees who escaped from the war and fled all the way to the vicinity of Qingdu. They were treated as undocumented vagrants and blocked outside Qingdu. Over time, rumors spread in Qingdu. Come on. For a time, people were panicked, and many people secretly said, "I'm so sad, God won't bless me." July of the 18th year of Jishengli. After repeated discussions at the higher level, civil and military officials reached a consensus and divided part of the Xinwu army stationed in Qingdu into 20,000 troops, all of them elite, with light chariots and fast horses, to rush to Lumen Pass. These 20,000 elite Xinwu troops are personally led by the senior general Xinwu General. On July 15, the weather is fine, suitable for travel and expedition. General Shinryu burned incense and bathed, put on his polished iron armor, mounted his agile war horse, and stepped out of Kingdo. The people of Kingdo lined the streets on both sides, shouting that General Shinryu was awesome and sending off the reinforcements. General Shinryu participated in a series of well-known battles to quell civil strife. His life story was even edited by historians and compiled into the biography of General Shinryu, which was collected in Tianqian Academy and will be remembered for future generations. Many people saw the Shinryu general riding a war horse with a high aura and a cold expression, and when he slowly walked out of the palace, not only were they not frightened, but they were relieved. Everyone felt that as long as General Shinryu took action in this battle, it would be extremely safe. In the palace, many civil servants bid farewell to each other 10 miles away with tears in their eyes, reluctant to leave. Some civil servants rode hard and fast, writing down a heavy stroke on the snow-white rice paper that represented a major historical event. Dakian, in the 18th year of Jishengli, on the 15th day of the 7th month, General Shinryu rushed to Lumen Pass, hoping for a great victory. What no one noticed is that, surrounding the old Shinryu general, a thin, unfamiliar-looking recruit, also wearing the Shinryu army's standard armor, looked forward, with perseverance flashing in his bright eyes. The mighty Shinryu army rode out of the city. Behind the hooves of the 20,000 elite cavalry, dust filled the sky. After the Shinryu army left, in the empty place, the empty space was distorted. A man in white clothes holding an umbrella stepped out slowly, the clouds were clear and the wind was gentle. "Junior sister, why are you so stupid?" Jian Nanchun sighed softly. He knew that Xia Xiaoman secretly put on his armor and infiltrated into the Shinryu army in order to prevent himself and junior brother Lin from worrying. Between 20,000 people and 20,001 people, no one would notice if there was one more person. Although Jian Nanchun knew about this, he wanted to stop it, but in the end he couldn't bear it. Senior brother Jian remembered what junior brother Lin Yi said. Junior sister Xiaoman will become a demon if she doesn't get rid of the knot in her heart. She will never make any progress in her life. Brother Jian counted with his fingers and frowned. He found that he couldn't figure it out. He once again regretted that he did not work hard on the Tai hexagram technique and learn the secrets of the hexagram technique. Jian Nanchun held the Tianji umbrella and followed the Shinryu army from a distance towards Lumen Pass. On the way, he took out Yilin's special communication tool, the Zimu Ding, and sent a message to junior brother Lin Yi, leaving a message telling him about it. Junior sister disguises herself as a man, puts on armor, and goes to Lumen Pass. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Xia Xiaoman left for the expedition a month ago. The army's attack is slightly different from the monks' direct flight. The monks can go alone, but the level of the elite Shinryu army varies from good to bad, and riding on horseback is a lot slower. Yilin already knew about this, but he did not rush to Kingdo immediately. After spending a month searching, he came to Lulan. Came here. Now. Lulan. In an inn. It is very dangerous for a man and a woman to live alone in the same room. Jingle, clang, clang. The landlady exhaled like a orchid, and the bells on her hands and feet made a crisp sound. She gently caressed the young man's dusty face with her slender hands, and gently scratched the young man's pale skin with her perfectly manicured nails, and finally stroked back and forth on the young man's neck. To be honest, there is no girl named Feng Qingtong here in my family, but I am very curious, sir, how do you know this girl? It's a long story. Yilin allowed the young woman's slender green fingers to do whatever they wanted on his body, smelling the faintly charming fragrance all around, without being moved at all, and sighed softly, "You must listen. Keek, my slave loves to listen to stories the most." The young woman smiled happily. Then I started talking about it when I visited Wangxiang Tower a month ago. Yiren started telling a story. Tomorrow is New Year's Day, Take a day off. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 940. It's a long story. Yuren makes a long story short. After leaving Qingyu village with Bai Chuchu, Yulin immediately went to the nearest city of Yuchen and visited a brothel. The flag of King Genies has been hung on the city wall of Yuchen for a long time, and the colorful flags are fluttering. It is said that when the army of King Genies pressed on the border, the city lord of Yuchen immediately raised the white flag and announced his surrender, saving Yuchen from the torture of war. The lord of Yuchen, whose city gates were wide open, not only did not become a prisoner, but was reused by the king of Genies and became an important checkpoint along the logistics transportation route. He set up granaries and armories in the city to serve the king of Genies, and he became a lackey. For the people in the city, it didn't make much difference who was the lord of the city and whose flag was hung on the city wall. The only thing that made the people of Yuchen feel the cruelty of the war was that on the day Yuchen announced its surrender, the Dacian sergeants who had sworn not to surrender were brutally slaughtered by the king of Genies. The bloody heads were hung on the city gate and displayed to the public for 3 days and 3 nights. Serve as a warning to others. Yulin entered Yuchen easily, as if no one was guarding him. Yuchen was heavily guarded against fire, theft, and finesse, but it could not protect against a golden elixir monk. Arriving in front of Wangxiang Tower, the brothel was open for business as usual, and a gentle ditty could be heard from inside, which made Yulin feel like a business girl who doesn't know the hatred of losing her country, but sings as a flower in the backyard across the river. Returning to Wangxiang Tower in Yuchen after 4 years, what Yulin didn't expect was that not long after he entered the door, he was recognized and called Ninth Young Master. A group of red-faced sisters were pulled away by the embroiderer. The embroiderer stepped forward and bowed Yingying. The two got together in a small room and talked about the past. The embroiderer sighed. Fortunately, Yulin didn't take that matter to heart. If she had really gone to Qingdu, she would have packed up her belly and left now. Yulin had no other ideas and just said what she wanted. He wanted to see the owner of Qingluan Tree. The embroiderer said she didn't know. Wangxiang Tower is at the bottom of the intelligence agency chain of King Gluanchu. Xiu Niang is a lower-ranking member of the lower class. Let alone meeting the leader of the Qingluan Tree sect, she doesn't even know whether the leader of the Qingluan Tree sect is a boy or a girl. Just when Yulin was about to leave in disappointment, Xiu Niang gritted her teeth and introduced her superior leader to Yulin for the sake of the old friendship. Yulin hurriedly came to another city in the middle of the Dacian dynasty. There is also Wangxiang Tower here. The old dove here is called Mei Niang. Mei Niang is about 40 years old, has unique hobbies, and has no interest in the white-faced niche like Lin Zhugongzi. Even if Yulin holds Xiu Niang's secret introduction letter, Mei Niang is not polite at all and directly rejects him. Yulin was helpless and didn't want to force it, so she could only spend a few days squatting. Squatting gave him an unexpected surprise. Yulin accidentally discovered that Mei Niang was the old Jew of a brothel, but secretly she was the secret lover of the city lord. After discovering this incident, Yulin used the incident to reason with Mei Niang. Mei Niang was moved and took the initiative to sell her superior. Yulin found a higher-up, and happened to find out that the superior was actually the wife of an important official in the Dacian court. She was acting and standing at the same time. First she disguised herself, then concealed her identity, and lurked in a brothel, wondering if she was looking for a different kind of excitement. Naturally, Yulin would not give up this handle and continued to touch upwards along this line. Going up another line, I found the deputy leader of the Black Shark Gang in the next 3 gates. He turned out to be Qingluan Shu's spy buried in the Black Shark Gang. Later, Yulin found out that the deputy leader of the Black Shark Gang was something special, a good boy. Good, so perverted. Yulin lamented human nature, and used this as a threat to ask the deputy leader of the Black Shark Gang to reveal another upline. That's all. Yilin touched and touched, checked, and he actually stepped forward step by step. It took him a month to finally find out the true identity of the leader of the Qingluan tree sect. Actually, it's not easy to find out that you are Feng Qingtong, really. You've hidden it well. After telling a series of short stories, Feng Qingtong's pretty pink face turned dark instantly. The reason why she uses the single-line communication method as the communication method between the members of Qingluan tree is to keep it confidential. Unexpectedly, someone could follow this line and find the source. Damn it! This is a method Feng Qingtong never imagined. Feng Qingtong's nails scratched on the young man's neck, and she subconsciously relaxed a little. While she couldn't help but laugh or cry, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. This young man spoke easily, but what he said were the deepest secrets hidden by those people. But these secrets were so easy, and in just 1 month, the young man in front of him found them all by following the clues. This put Feng Qingtong in her shoes, and she couldn't help but have the illusion of being stripped naked and washed, and appearing to have no secrets in front of the young man. I also know. When Feng Qingtong was silent, Yilin smiled slightly. On the surface, you are a transcendent intelligence organization and the master of the Qingluan tree, but secretly you are a member of King Pingzi. Feng Qingtong sneered and was about to say something. Yilin shook her head and signaled Feng Qingtong to stop talking, but you secretly sold King Pingzi's information to King Zhenbei. What? You? Feng Qingtong suddenly took a few steps back and looked at the calm white-faced young man in horror. After she screamed in surprise, there was a slight tremor in her voice. Feng Qingtong was obviously trying hard to suppress it, but her expression, actions, and voice betrayed her inner thoughts. She has even considered whether to kill someone and silence her. It turns out that what happened just now was not an illusion. In the eyes of the young man, she really had no secrets. The young man in front of me smiled slightly and said, "Three-faced spy, amazing. However, I still have a suspicion, but there is no evidence. I wonder if Master Feng Clan is interested in hearing about it?" Feng Qingtong nodded numbly. She could no longer pretend to be pure and lustful in front of the young man. Instead, she was curious about what else the young man had found out in addition to the secrets just now. Qingluan bathes in fire, Feng lives in Wutong. Yilin said something strange. Feng Qingtong's face changed slightly, and the young man slowly said, "I accidentally saw this in a history book of Tianqian Academy. If I am not mistaken about the scrawled annotation, I compared it with the imperial edict rubbings collected by Tianqian Academy. That annotation should be the handwriting of the late Emperor Xia Yuan. In other words." Yilin smiled and pushed the bridge of his nose. Even though there was nothing there, he made an expression that said there is only one truth, you and Emperor Xia Yuan. Do not talk. Feng Qingtong was completely convinced. Emperor Xia Yuan was dead. This secret should have been buried in the grave with Emperor Xia Yuan's death. But this secret was actually figured out by the young man in front of him through various channels and clues. Even if the young man said there is no evidence, looking at his confident expression, it seemed that there is evidence. After a while, Feng Qingtong pushed back her messy temples. After regaining her composure, she smiled sweetly, "What do you want when you come here?" She didn't believe that this young man made a special trip to Lilan City just to reveal her secret relationship with Emperor Xia Yuan. Things went more smoothly than expected. Yilin breathed a sigh of relief. After checking over and over again this month, the trip was finally not in vain. He recalled the days and nights of this month, working hard and staying up late, and he had put in a lot of effort, and now it was time to reap the fruits. "I want to ask you to do something that will make you, me, Emperor Xia Yuan, and the whole world, all happy." Yilin put away her smile, raised a finger, and said seriously. He deliberately placed an accent on the word please, for fear that Feng Qingtong would not agree.